But have you also noticed that with Danny Boyle, like his filmography, you could almost turn into like a little poem. Like
I have not noticed this before. No.
have you not noticed this? So like you could say like, yeah, yesterday I went train spotting, and not quite 28 days later, but 127 hours later, I saw Steve Jobs, and he was digging a shallow grave.
I love it.
And then he went to the beach.
And then he fought T2. Terminator 2.
Oh yeah,
That's what we do.
I don't think I've included that in here. Anyway, we'll
I was in a trance while train spotting.
Oh, that's not bad.
And London 2012 Olympics. I don't know where you could get that in there, but
Well, Mr. Bean, the Richard Curtis connection.
I mean, why not?
Anyway. Here we are. So, hello, I am Sam.
I'm Ian.
And we welcome you to episode 7 of the Deep Dive 5, a show where we dive into 5 topics regarding the career of a filmmaker and their latest film or TV show. So, Danny Boyle, the acclaimed British filmmaker, has the highly anticipated 28 years later, releasing worldwide at the cinemas on the 20th of June. The film is the third film in the 28 film series. I didn't know how else to pronounce it. You can't. What is the franchise called of this?
I don't know. 28 Moments of Time trilogy?
Yeah, mine's better. Ian, where do you rank Boyle in the great ranking of great British filmmakers? And do you think 28 years later will be a success, particularly at the box office?
I am ready to see what it does.
Yes.
But I don't know whether or not at this moment in time I could turn around and say, yeah, that's going to be an out-and-out banger. It might do really well because The Last of Us has kind of reinvigorated like the zombie type character that's not zombie. So you got Last of Us, which is zombie not zombie, and 28 years later is zombie not zombie. So it kind of feels like they're kind of part of a package. And with this swell of popularity around zombie not zombies, then actually 28 years might be a bit of a sleeper hit, a bit like 28 days and 28 weeks. This could be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Even though they were out and out successes based on budget, this is a different thing entirely. This is a massive budget compared to those other two. It's got to perform. I think they're hedging their bets that this is going to be a home run.
Mm. Well, we've just had Sinners that broke box office records for horror. So It's a good time for horror in terms of the big money. But it's interesting because you've also got Alex Garland, who has co-directed Warfare, which was very successful, and Civil War. So you've got
An Annihilation?
Annihilation, well, which is a few years before that.
Yep.
But you've got...
Did he do Men? Or did he just write Men?
No, he directed Men.
He directed Men as well. That was a bit hit and miss.
Well, Men is one of those... we'll have to do a podcast about COVID films that filmmakers, when COVID happened, what can we do? We could just film a woman walking through the English countryside. We can do that without breaking COVID
What should we
protocols.
do? Netflix will buy it.
Yeah.
Why not?
No, it didn't. No, it was released in the cinema. I watched it.
It got like a week, didn't it?
It did get a week. Yeah.
Netflix. It got a cinema run in the US, and Netflix bought worldwide distribution rights. It was the weirdest thing. So it got cinema release in very few locations. Then Netflix had worldwide distributions and put it in cinemas for a very short period of time. But at the same time, it rolled out day and date on Netflix at the same time. I watched it day of release worldwide at home.
Wow.
So it was a really weird rollout model.
Okay.
For Annihilation. But I mean, that's beside the point.
Well, back to the first question regarding Danny Boyle's place in the echelons of British directors. It's his first film for 6 years, since Yesterday. And he now has a 30-plus year director career where he's made some of the best British films in that time.
And most successful.
Most successful. Do you rank him along the likes of Nolan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Danny Boyle's up there. And I think you can... There's a famous... And I'm going to absolutely butcher this because I can't remember it. I'm going to say Hollywood Reporter, but I don't think it's Hollywood Reporter. It's a round table with Danny Boyle, Quentin Tarantino.
Great. Yeah, I've seen that. Ridley Scott.
Todd,
the director of King's Speech.
Is that Todd Howard?
No, it's not Todd Howard. Ooh,
Todd Hayes?
He made Cats.
Todd Hayes?
The man who made Cats.
Man who made Cats. But no, there's and obviously, as I mentioned, Danny Boyle was part of that roundup as well, and it's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
It might be one of the best like director on director things. It kind of
that is 10 years ago now because that was promoting Steve Jobs,
Hateful Eight,
and
Steve
The Martian.
Jobs, The Martian,
which was and also the Danish girl, I believe.
And Joy. So Russell.
David O. Russell.
David O. Russell was there for Joy, and probably somebody else.
Was Inarritu there?
Yes.
For The Revenant. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a serious table. Isn't
that's
it?
a very well. I think that's the most viewed on YouTube for The Hollywood Reporter.
Oh, is it?
And it had a guy who
is that Hollywood Reporter? Or is it Variety?
No, it's Hollywood Reporter.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. The guy who hosted it was British and looked like Mr. Bean, which I remember being like the top comment. But yes, I think Danny Boyle's had a fascinating career. I'm very curious to know his place in like modern, British cinema. Like, do you think that younger people know him, like as well as like our generation? Because we kind of grew up with 28 Days Later. I always consider my earliest memories of Danny Boyle was like his British Renaissance after his American flops, which we'll get into in a bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's easily one of my favourites.
I think if you were a young film fan now and you looked at regional cinema and you were able to kind of explore it in a way that was interesting for you, then I don't think you would ignore Trainspotting. I think you could quite easily miss Shallow Grave. You would definitely miss A Life Less Ordinary. I mean, that is an American production though. But then you quickly get into 28 Days Later, Millions, and then he kind of moved away from Britain at that point to make everything else. But in theory, there are some tentpole movies that you would say to a young film fan, oh, what some top... Give me a list of 50 films that you'd watch. You'd probably put Trainspotting in there. You'd probably put 28 Days Later in there.
Well, we'll move on to his backstory. Danny Boyle was born in 1950s Manchester and grew up in a working class family with aspirations to become a director after seeing Apocalypse Now at the cinema. After a successful decade directing in theatre and television, Boyle directed his first feature film in 1994 with the release of Shallow Grave, which was also, I believe, the film debut of future collaborator Ewan McGregor.
Yep.
I believe. Boyle
and Christopher Eccleston. Christopher Eccleston,
that's true, yeah. Boyle followed up with the acclaimed Trainspotting, which is often considered the greatest British film ever made, and definitely the best British film of the 90s. Very like pop culture moment for the 90s. Boyle soon caught the eye of Hollywood, but his films A Life Less Ordinary and The Beach were not well received by critics. The director went back to basics with the British horror 28 Days Later, which reignited his career, and also the zombie genre.
Yep.
Although it's not really a zombie film.
Zombie, not zombie.
Which we'll go into probably a bit later. Boyle's career peaked in 2008 with the release of Slumdog Millionaire, which won Boyle the Oscar for Best Director. Danny Boyle's career has continued to garner acclaim with the releases of 127 Hours and Steve Jobs. 28 years later is Boyle's first film for 6 years and sees his director career past the 30-year mark. We're just having a little reflection on his previous films. Morton, what would you consider your favourite out of that list?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, Trainspotting will always be the benchmark and the masterpiece of his career, but there are some proper shouts, I would say.
Excuse me. I really like Trainspotting. I think that's the one. I think you kind of have to ignore that because I think it's such a phenomenal achievement.
It's like
that you
when you rank Scorsese and you try not to just I know you're not a fan of Goodfellas to the degree of most people, but most people, they don't want to mention Goodfellas because it's just so...
Because it's obvious. It's the obvious pick.
Obvious choice, yeah.
So I'm going to avoid that for now. Annoyingly, so I normally, in preparation for these podcasts, I look through all their back catalogue and then I kind of, not rate it, but I give it like a traffic light system. Danny Boyle has overwhelming amounts of green, which makes him really difficult to talk about because he has a lot of praise. So to turn around and start saying, oh, what's your favourite? He starts off very gritty, dark, nasty, British sensibilities.
That nasty Britishness is like almost his signature.
Yeah. And then so when you then look at things like 28 Days Later, that was kind of probably my intro to him, because I would have watched that. I would have been at an age where I could watch 28 Days Later before I'd even probably known of Trainspotting. So that's high up there. I really like Sunshine as much as I don't like the last third.
The last
I really
act
appreciate the
lets it
first
down.
2 acts. Like, I genuinely think that sets things up really well. The cast is phenomenal in that as
Amazing
well.
music.
Brilliant music. I really like 127 Hours.
Love that film.
Really like 127 Hours.
Saw it 4 times when it came out.
I didn't mind Trance. I did quite like it. Not to the same degree. I loved Steve Jobs.
Yes. It's probably one of my favourite written films of the 2010s.
Yeah, and I have a real soft spot for Trainspotting 2, which you could arguably say it's not as good as Trainspotting.
It's
but
fine.
in terms of sequels to something made 20 years
yeah.
plus after the original, that's pretty good success, because there's a lot of stuff that's being rebooted now or be reboot-qualled that doesn't get the same amount of love and attention.
T2 Trainspotted is odd because it's a perfectly fine film, but I think most people just don't remember it. Like, I haven't really seen it since it came out, because I thought I've seen it. There was a lot of like pressure going into it because I love Trainspotting 1 so much, and I watched it. I thought I was more relieved that it was fine.
Yeah.
And not like something that really brought down the previous film. It's an interesting... I'm not even sure what the word would be for something like that. Harmless, almost, which you don't want, because then you don't feel like it's really earned its place.
Yeah. I think there's a really interesting dichotomy between the two of them, though, because you've got... Trainspotting is a challenging movie, and I mean that in all the positive senses, in as much as when you first watch it, even now, you watch it and you go, oh wow, they've just done that. So for even someone new who's never seen Trainspotting before will still have the same shock value that Trainspotting has. It hasn't diluted over time. It's not like, say, the Saw franchises, for instance. As you go through those, you become very, very, very desensitized to any of the violence, to the point where the earlier ones then just look like nothing, because you've then had Hostel going to do crazy things, and everything just up the ante. Not to say that Trainspotting and Saw have anything in common, but it's that desensitization to things on screen. But Trainspotting still has that shock value. It still has that texture to it that a lot of films don't have. It's still...
Sorry.
No, go on.
It's the greatest anti-drug film ever made.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, in a way, that says a lot about the sensibilities of the director. It says a lot about Boyle, in that someone has clearly sent him a script for Trainspotting 2. Because as much of a success that Trainspotting is, there probably always a drive to let's do another Trainspotting. As time's gone on, and you realise let's say the ceiling that type of film probably has in terms of profit and all things and those bits and pieces, you're pretty much just creating buzz around something that may or may not be a success, like given the age rating and that. So there's an element then of revisiting it because it was a good script that I really appreciate. Did Irvin Welsh come back?
Irvin Welsh,
Did
yes.
he come back to T2?
Trainspotting 2 is based on his book Porno.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and he wrote that in the early 2000s.
So again, it's the same writer, a similar adaptation. John Hodge came back for it as well, who's a prevalent writer. I actually, funnily enough, I always associated a lot of Danny Boyle with Alex Garland. And for a very long time, I was like, oh no, Alex Garland is his guy. But then when we were doing research for this, I was like, no, it's definitely John Hodge. He has worked with John Hodge a lot.
Alex Garland's like his second muse.
Yeah, it's between the two. Like, there's very little outside of those two.
Yeah, Danny Boyle generally uses the same people for everything. Like, Andrew McDonald has been his producer since Shallow Grave.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Andrew McDonald has just basically, like, anytime Danny Boyle fancies something, he's just like the first person to help him.
Yeah.
So
I'll help.
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier. Has there been a better British film since Trainspotting? I mean, it's 30 years old next year, Trainspotting.
Without the ability to Google this, it would be almost impossible.
Well, no,
but
that's what I mean. That's the beauty of it. Just think for a moment. Has there been, not even this, because obviously Trainspotting, it wasn't just a really good film. It was like a massive pop culture moment.
Yeah.
Like, it was part of like the Britpop era of the music scene in England. It was all kind of part of that era. So
Could you rightly claim that GoldenEye is a British movie?
of course it is.
Then GoldenEye.
GoldenEye's
potentially?
before this. GoldenEye is 95, and this is 96.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I suppose the obvious ones would be
Again, I
Casino
mean,
Royale.
you could stay on Bond in that sense, and I would probably.
Die Another
I
Day.
don't agree with it, but I think a lot of people would say Skyfall because
Yes,
that
that's
was a huge hit.
That's
that
a
was
good.
massive.
That's a good one because that's again, it's like a big pop culture moment.
Yeah.
Because that was the same year as the Olympics, so it was a very like big year for Britishness.
Yeah.
Which Danny Boyle obviously played a big part on with organising the Summer Olympics.
I suppose I know it's a weird thing as well, but I mean, if we're transcending genre with this question as well, you would arguably say a lot of Richard Curtis movies might have done that. Like if you look at things like Love Actually.
I think that was the only one he directed.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like in terms of like grander, like you're talking about like British films and having that impact. Love Actually's had a huge impact. I was watching something the other day that had a Love Actually moment in it where I was like, I did not expect to see that. And so, I don't know. Not being too around in 95, 6.
96.
Not being too around for this, I couldn't really say the degree to which this had a huge, like an impact on pop culture. It probably had a massive impact on pop culture.
Well, it's one of those.
Particularly to earn 100 million in 96, that's quite impressive. So from that standpoint, to then measure something against that.
It's one of those films where it gave birth to like a whole generation of like actors too. Like it cemented obviously Danny Boyle's career, but Ewan McGregor became enormous because of this film, as did Robert
dude in
Carlyle,
Grey's
who did
Anatomy.
The Full Monty, the guy Tommy from Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
Oh god, I can't remember her name.
Kelly MacDonald.
Kelly MacDonald. Kelly MacDonald became very famous after this. So famous, I can't remember. her
Johnny
name.
Lee Miller.
Yep, married Angelina Jolie.
And the guy from Grey's Anatomy was Kevin McKidd.
But
just to give a name to
he's
him.
just Tommy. He'll always be Tommy. Doesn't it make you proud to be Scottish? But no, I mean, we're talking about Trainspotting for quite a lot because it is such a massive film in his repertoire. And it made him so famous that he went on to direct A Life Less Ordinary that no one remembers, and The Beach, which everyone remembers, but I think mostly for the soundtrack. And the fact that it's weirdly got DiCaprio in it.
The Beach is a fascinating movie. Do you know what? In preparation for this, I rewatched this because I've never liked this film. I've never liked it. It never made sense to me. But I was like, you know what? I'm a little bit older now. Let's view this through the lens of a Danny Boyle film at a specific time. Because I think you can appreciate certain things about a movie if you just change the setting and your perspective on like going in. So I'm going to go in really open-minded. I remember you turning around to me and saying, it's not written for DiCaprio. So try and view it through the lens that this was written for somebody else. And as I was watching it, that kept cycling through my brain. And it was so evident that it was not written for, not just DiCaprio, but for an American. Mm. It was meant for a bit of a, like, I wouldn't, because I messaged you after, didn't I? And I was like, I'm not sure. I completely agree with you. It was not written for DiCaprio. It wasn't written for an American, but I don't think it was necessarily written for Ewan McGregor.
It's kind of based on Alex Garland's travels, I think, after university. So really, I mean, obviously kind of Alex Garland doing it.
It was his book, right?
It's
like
his
they
book,
adapted his book.
It's based on his novel. But it's hard. I mean, you're thinking Ewan McGregor's the obvious choice because obviously he's like Danny Boyle's. I mean, at that point he had done his previous 3 films,
and they famously fell out.
They famously fell out
he
until
thought he was going to be
T2
casted in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, The Beach was that's probably the lowest ebb of his career because at that point you've got 2 flops. American audiences are losing faith in you.
Did you actually take anything positive from The Beach though?
I like the atmosphere. I like the atmosphere of the film, but as a story, it's just non-existent.
After watching Shallow Grave,
and I don't like the characters.
After watching Shallow Grave, this felt hugely sanded down.
Okay.
I genuinely felt like it should have been nastier. Like as much as, and there were some bits where I was like, this doesn't, like, DiCaprio was still quite young in this in terms of his skill as an actor. So it doesn't quite, it's not like you've got like a really, I'm not saying you want like a darkness in your actor, but you need that edge to them that definitely after Titanic, DiCaprio didn't have. He didn't have that until much later when he'd learnt that craft from Day-Lewis, Nicholson, he's picked up so much from other people that he's worked with that he was too young, I think, for a role like this. And that's where it became more obvious when I was like, some of the lines that he's delivering, I'm like, I don't think you get this. And like, there's the bit where he's in the, he's basically being outcast into the jungle, essentially, at a point in time. And his job is basically because he's made a map of this island, the beach, on for where this famous beach is. And he's made a map of it and he's given it out to locals who live on another island somewhere. And that's like a no-no. And there's a scene in it where he basically just creates like this warped video game. And DiCaprio is like being like really like comical and like really kind of animated with it. And I was like, this doesn't work. Like, it would work, but at the moment, I don't think it works for you. Like, I feel as much sorry for DiCaprio, aside from the fact he got paid 20 million for it, I feel sorry for him because someone's gone, you need to work with Danny Boyle. He's a British filmmaker. He's really edgy. He's really gritty. This will get you to break out of that Titanic barrier. And so he's gone, yeah, all right, this sounds good, not knowing that there's so much more around him that was pretty much saying, this wasn't written for you, mate.
Well, he turned down American Psycho, I believe, to appear in this.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have completely changed the course of his career? Because after The Beach, I believe his next films is working with Spielberg and Scorsese.
It's like Catch Me If You Can.
Catch Me If You Can and Gangs of New York. Yeah. So,
and you'd learn a lot on those film sets, right? Not that you wouldn't learn anything on a Danny Boyle film set, but like you're talking about, at that point, Danny Boyle's only been making films for 8 years. So, if that. So, compare that to Spielberg's and Scorsese's career at that point and the people that he's working with. It's not a set where you're going to go, oh, you're going to learn so much here, unless you've got mental Robert Carlyle teaching you things on the side. You're probably not going to get a lot from this.
Well, the scenes with Robert Carlyle are the most that feel like a Danny Boyle film.
Yeah, like, and that's what I mean by like nasty.
Yeah,
like you had all that going on. You've got all this stuff with the island, but you've got these drug dealers on the other side of an island. Like, it could be a really dark look about that whole, there's a dark side to paradise type thing. It's like the paradox of the whole thing, which it tries to do, but not in the same way that something like Shallow Grave does it. Where Shallow Grave is nasty as hell. The whole way from the very beginning, you hate these characters and you just want to see, because they're so nasty in themselves, and then you want to see how nasty they can be to one another. There was an element where I was watching The Beach going, I want some of that. I want like a Lord of the Flies scenario going on where like these people have found paradise. They've rejected normal society to live on this island, but the rules are so dire and so violent that you can't ever leave. You're basically imprisoned in paradise. And I was like, oh, I want this. This is what I want from this. And you kind of expect it to go there, given Boyle's previous stuff, but it never does. There's a weirdly happy ending tacked on to the end that just feels really...
I think the American... the studio, whoever, I think it's Fox, they probably meddled massively with this film.
Oh, it just felt so saccharine.
I mean, the highlight of the film for me was obviously the fact that Johnson from Peep Show is in it.
Oh, obviously.
That was the only time I smiled.
And his whole obsession with cricket. Yeah. This is like brilliant.
So I just in my head think this is what he did before he started working for JLB.
But he's got such a posh accent that he's trying to do like a Cockney accent in it as well, and it's like you can see right through that.
But my theory is that I think Danny Boyle, by the time this film came out, was like, I'm out of here. I want to go back to England. I want to make gritty, low budget films.
Yeah,
and he does. And I mean, 28 Days Later, I watched it at the cinema about a month ago. They're doing obviously their build up towards 28 years later, and it's so compelling and it's so low budget. Like, there's so many scenes that were clearly filmed on a camcorder.
So, interestingly enough, apparently this happened at the time where Boyle discovered digital.
Yes,
so he was one of the first filmmakers that absolutely jumped in on digital filmmaking, and hence the reason why 28 Days could be made in the way that it was, because it physically couldn't have been able to be made on like traditional cameras, particularly filming in London at the times of day that they wanted to film. They had to be quick. So they really embraced all these digital technologies for 28 Days. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's aged well. As much as, because all they've done is just take out a couple of walkers to work in at like 5 o'clock in the morning. But essentially, what you're seeing is real through the lens of a kind of a handy cam, essentially.
Yeah, it's just aged so well in so many ways. Because obviously Cillian Murphy is now an incredibly popular actor with Peaky Blinders and Oppenheimer, won the Oscar fairly recently. You've also got COVID, and the scenes of Cillian Murphy walking through London have aged very well just because of the relations to COVID. It gave birth, or it didn't give birth, sorry, it created its own renaissance with the zombie genre, which obviously went with Shaun of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead and Walking Dead eventually. But every time I hear it being called a zombie film, I'm just like, they're not zombies. They're alive. They've got the rage virus. It's literally explained in the film in the beginning. They're not dead. So
Yeah, but you can't sell the rage virus. Like, you can't sell that in an advert.
that's the problem. It's just like it could have been something completely unique and separate from zombies, but I suppose the influence it had on the zombie genre is huge, so
Yeah.
I can tolerate that. But it did give Danny Boyle's career a kick up the bum that it needed.
Yeah.
Because then he made Millions, which is well received, although not particularly well known now. And then he made Sunshine, which was sort of like his return to big budget American filmmaking. And it culminated with Slumdog Millionaire 2 years after that, which was obviously his Oscar film.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of Sunshine, I know.
I'm a big fan. I really enjoy Sunshine. I enjoy the first 2 acts of Sunshine. The last act is so all over the place, and it's so messy. It kind of really comes out of nowhere. And hence the reason why that was my association with Alex Garland.
Yeah.
Because I think I was watching, again, I make no secret of the fact that 2000s was an era where I got into film, which is also ironic because 2000s movies weren't that great. And there's a lot of good movies that come out in that time, but there's also, when you compare it to what was going on in the 2010s and particularly the 90s and how hard hitting a lot of films were and what they were trying to do, sometimes I look back at the 2000s and I'm like, oh, some of the stuff I liked. It's not aged that well compared to some of the stuff in the 90s and 2010s now.
Do you think? I think a lot of people would say the 2000s was amazing and the 2010s was a low
I think
point.
the 2000s were an interesting time because it was the end of a lot of cinema and a lot of genre tropes. So if you imagine like the 90s action boom was dying off at that point, you're having the rise of essentially a different type of comedy, which was all the Judd Apatow stuff, but that also died in the 2010s. Towards the end, but you also have the teen movie situation that was going on, American Pie, which is so problematic to look at now, that for some reason the 2000s era now, when I look back on it, as much as there's some absolute gems in there, and there's a lot of films where I look through it, particularly it's what the beauty of these deep dives are, you go back through and you go, oh yeah, I remember that was a great movie. It came out in 2009, whereas it actually felt like it either comes out earlier than that or later. The Beach and stuff like that, I would have said that was 99. No, we're sitting on, I mean, I know we're talking a year, but it's still got that 2000 moniker to it. It feels like older than that. But yeah, so when I look back on like this, Sunshine's a perfect example of a movie, for instance, that came out that I was very influenced by. That was one of those edgier films that was like, oh yeah, I can jump on board with that. That as I rewatch it now, in the wake of like a lot of really good sci-fi space stuff, that third act is a real pain. It really annoys me, you know?
Yeah.
But in fact, it kind of disappoints me because the first 2 acts are so good. The cast is phenomenal. The story's amazing. But for some reason, you end up with essentially the nemesis from Resident Evil stomping around your ship.
It's probably just studio meddling.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think decade is better for him? The 2000s or the 2010s? In fact, here's a question: what is his best decade?
I would probably say, oh, that's a good question. I'd probably say in terms of consistency,
2010s.
Oh no, that even that falls out the window really, because if you consider the 2010s had 127 hours, Steve Jobs and T2. It
Trance.
also had Trance, which was middling, and Yesterday. That kind of follows a very similar trajectory to his 2000s, where you have 28 Days Later, Millions, and Slumdog Millionaire, but then you've kind of got your Amber, if we go back to the traffic light analogy. You've got your Amber, Sunshine, and then you've kind of got The Beach, which wasn't that great.
Yeah,
so,
I think the 2000s is probably his best because you got to think he gave. 28 Days Later is massively influential, and then he won an Oscar, and then you've also got Sunshine, which was obviously talking about all things. It's a big science fiction film, which is probably very out of his comfort zone in many ways. Never really done anything that groundbreaking before.
I suppose as well, if you're talking about, I know you're talking about 2000s, an argument for the 2010s would be in 2011 he did the Frankenstein thing with Johnny Lee Miller and Benedict Cumberbatch, which
Yes.
was the National Theatre thing. So that was him going back to his roots with theatre, and that was supposed to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Projected straight into cinemas. I think it was one of the first times they did it. I think that was about 2011.
And again, we cannot forget Rowan Atkinson's performance at the Summer Olympics.
And then that's what my next thing was going to be in 2012. We did the Olympics. So that's two accolades outside of movies that you could arguably say, yeah, that's pretty good.
If he didn't make Yesterday, I would say it was a great decade overall, but it just ended with a whimper.
I mean, he's not made anything since, so...
Yeah.
Well, he's made the Sex Pistols TV show.
He did, which wasn't well received either.
No.
It was never going to be, because the Sex Pistols is so controversial, and to say the least. So, yeah, Yesterday was probably one of the most disappointing films I've seen in terms of anticipation, because he's directing it, and you've also got Richard Curtis writing it, and it just ended up being so uninspiring. I know it's quite popular with people, but in terms of the concept, it was just really weak from both Boyle and Curtis.
I am shocked, though. I must admit, when I was reading into this, I am shocked he's done nothing since Yesterday. Well, I say nothing. That's not fair. He's done other projects. He's produced some stuff, and he's obviously produced the TV show and the Sex Pistols TV show. But he's done no movies. That's a long time. That's the biggest gap in his career.
I think that's why he's doing this. He's doing 28
Just
years
to
later
kind of,
because
do you
it's
reckon it's
like,
time to
well, we're living in
reinvigorate?
the era of reboots and sequels. If this is the only way that I can kind of get work going, then I'm happy to do
I suppose
this.
there's probably an argument for, right, you give me a trilogy of this and we'll give you two of whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
So we might see some more experimental Danny Boyle stuff
Yeah.
in the wake of
Yeah.
the 28 trilogy.
Well, I think Alex Garland was very influential in getting this off the ground because obviously he's got a lot of momentum in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, and obviously Cillian Murphy is coming back and he's got a lot of obviously Oscar prestige behind him. And
Are you surprised though that Garland, going back to Garland, are you surprised that Garland isn't directing this?
No, I think that would have been too.
I'm surprised he wasn't offered one of the trilogy movies. That's what
true.
you say. Danny Boyle's got the first and third.
Nia DaCosta's directing the second, and Danny Boyle announced actually today, while we're recording this, that he is almost certainly directing the third if it gets made, which I imagine it will, because obviously this film.
I'm surprised they're not filming this back to back to back. It doesn't make it's a weird film not to load up 3 years, right? Like it's not like.
I suppose it's the worry that the first film will flop. And
Yeah, but it's a production, for instance, that's going to call it 100 million a film, or say if put 20% markup for each consequent one. You spend 500 million making this trilogy. There is certainly a risk for it. But say each of those movies make. Well, I suppose actually it is. You're probably looking at the return for each one. But my biggest problem is if you've announced a trilogy, then complete the trilogy. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Like, people are going to go in knowing this is part of a trilogy. That takes away sometimes some of the intrigue. Because if you go into a second movie knowing that you're not going to see any, like, kind of tying up any of the story, that's a big problem. People just go, this is the Bridger movie. I can catch this on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of condemning a movie now. When you say, oh yeah, this is coming out as a trilogy, it's like the Marvel thing where it's like, right, this is phase 17. And you're like, oh, there's about 22 films then before I've got like another Avengers movie. It's a bit of a death knell now, you know? Like look at the Horizon movies. Costner.
How dare you compare my beloved Danny Boyle to Kevin Costner?
But it's the same thing, right? Like he's turned around and he's just gone, oh yeah, I'm just going to make this like love affair with Western cinema. I'm going to make 3 movies, or I think originally it was supposed to be like 5, that are all going to be released within like 6 months of one another, and everyone's going to fall in love with it because it's all old school cinema, and I'm going to self-fund it. And the first one flopped so bad that they don't even know now that, like, it's not that the film hasn't been made. Costner has made the part 2 and part 3. They lost the distribution partner. Universal have basically turned around and gone, no,
Nah.
this isn't going to make money. So it's it doesn't make any sense. Like, there has to be an element of that. There has to be a part of that formula or that equation that mentioning that this is a part of a wider trilogy or a wider franchise, or something like that, is now a death knell. Because it just says to someone that you have to be engaged with this for 5 films before you're going to get any closure. And that, I think now, particularly this day and age...
Well, we don't know.
It's why something like Sinners does so well.
Yeah. We don't know. I mean, we don't know what the second and third film will really be like. Maybe this is the closing of one chapter, and then the second and third one will be completely different.
But what's next, though? It's about 28 years, and it's what, 28 decades?
Yeah.
So then 28 centuries.
Well, where was 28 months later? We've just missed that.
Well, they can't just slot that in, can they? If they do 28 months later, that'll be what would that be? That would be a pre-sequel, prequel. Like what? Oh.
I mean, I think the film will be good. It's in safe hands. It's got all the right people involved, so definitely. I think it will be good.
I think there's much more outside of the who's in it and who's directing it and who's written it. There's so many more factors at play that will determine this is a success or not. So at the moment, if we go back to the very first question that you asked right at the very beginning of this podcast, is this going to be a successful one? I think it's got all the right ingredients to be really successful, but it'll be the market that determines whether or not it's a success.
Yeah. After, obviously, because this is the return to, what's the word? Prevalence for Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
Where do you think his career will go after this? Because he's getting on a bit now. He's nearly 70, I believe. What kind of genres do you think he would explore? Or is this basically like the beginning of the end of his career as a film director?
I mean, we've seen the 6-year gap between Yesterday and 28 years later.
I mean, in hindsight, why the hell did he make a romantic comedy?
Oh, no. I mean, why would he make Steve Jobs? I mean, okay, Steve Jobs is essentially a theatre production.
Yeah.
And
I think that's why.
It's told in a very similar structure as Slumdog. So I can kind of see what would have enticed him to a project like that, because it kind of fits in with his first loves, you know, or not just his first loves, but things that he really enjoys. But it's still outside of that norm, you know.
I'd like him to explore a Western. I mean, if he's doing romantic comedies...
Or the equivalent. Can you get a Western
like a
in
British
the UK?
Western?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a British Western would be cool.
Yeah. I suppose it's like Gangs of
Antiquities.
London, the most recent one. Oh, yeah, you could get Ewan McGregor in.
Done. You get Robert Carlyle in there somewhere.
They have to get a film done with Cillian Murphy and Ewan McGregor, surely. Like his most famous like stars.
Written by Alex Garland.
Yeah.
John Hodge on the side,
Yeah.
doing script duties as well.
Kind of a side note, but have you read Trainspotting?
No.
It's basically written in like Glaswegian or Edinburgh.
Oh, nice.
Or Edinburgh. So it's quite hard to read, but it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things though, when you get the language in your head and you
exactly. Yeah.
you get used to the pattern of it, you end up can read it really quick, because Scottish is a quick language.
Yeah.
So it's like you've just got to get used to the cadence of it, and then when it clicks, you just go, "Oh, okay."
They should do like a superhero thing where they combine filth and Trainspotting. So you've got like James McAvoy's character and Begbie teaming up to finally take down Mark. Maybe that'll be the next film.
That'll be the next one.
We'll see. So, based on everything that we have said about Sir Danny Boyle, do you think that this film will be well worth our listeners seeing?
I think so.
I mean, it's a huge film. I mean, the trailer for it was... it's probably my favourite trailer. They incorporated Boots, which is like an incredibly old poem from World War One, into the trailer. Like, literally, like the audio recording is from like 1916. And they incorporated it into the trailer, and I absolutely loved it. It was so clever.
Okay.
We haven't even mentioned Ray Fiennes is also in this film, and he's always a safe pair of hands.
Yep.
And I like Ray Fiennes and Boyle collaborating, and obviously Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who I believe has a Geordie accent.
Oh, see, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I'm still waiting for something where he knocks it out of the park. I'm not utterly convinced on Aaron Taylor-Johnson yet.
Okay.
We'll save that for our next Deep Dive 5.
We will, yeah. So, I believe that is the end of the podcast. So, thank you for tuning into the latest episode of the Deep Dive 5. We want to hear your opinions on the career of Sir Danny Boyle. What would you rank as his career highlight? Is Trainspotting his magnum opus? Will 28 years later be as dominant at the box office as Sinners?
Oh,
It's an interesting question, I suppose. But yeah, we would like to hear your thoughts. If you would like to get more out of The Real Project, you can find us on Spotify. Goodbye and see you soon.
see you later.
Bye-bye.